welcome to One More Thing podcast. This morning I'm joined with Dr. Baucom again.
Good morning.
Well, we tag teamed yesterday, full Christmas mode. Christmas Eve is upon us, but we have one more sermon coming up that we won't get into. But yesterday, our whole idea was this idea of what?
Everlasting Father.
Father. And you kind of set it up by saying that God is always interested in us. That was part of our, but it's not a sexy word to just show interest. Why? But why is that impactful for our life to know, to live with this truth in our mind that God is always thinking about us constantly, like the grains of sand?
Yeah, I think it helps with our self-esteem. It helps with understanding our concept of God that we're trying to portray. And some of the things we do at Suncoast a little differently than what I had experienced when I grew up in church, and maybe others are still experimenting with, is who is God? And where is he in my life? And if he's out there somewhere, then is he interested in me from 10 billion miles away?
That's right.
Or does he really have an interest in me? Am I just like a particle of dust in his mind? But to realize that the Spirit of Christ lives in me, the Spirit of God lives in me, and he's always interested in me. Every breath I breathe, every smile that I make, I think he's interested in the way I'm kind.
Right.
And I think that continual interest shows this, somehow this everlasting, eternal connection that sometimes we've been so dualistic. It's God there, me here.
That's right.
We're trying to pull those together till we see there is no dualism.
Yep.
And I don't know what the right word is.
Right.
Unifying,
Yeah.
union, oneness.
Yeah.
Dualist is so easy.
That's right.
But the other words for oneness is a little more complicated. But I think that's his interest in us, and we see that in counseling, where people their dad has not been interested in them.
Yep.
And that creates problems because I think their father figure, at least that figure, needs to be seen. And I told the story about the wrestler who was crying because he won every meet. His dad was never there. He never seemed interested.
Yeah.
And there's a psychological wound that's created with a child when their dad is not interested.
Isn't that something that it is psychological in that effect? Like some people will text me, like friends from Dallas or friends from Louisiana, and some will just say, "Hey man, hope you're well, blah, 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 blah." And I appreciate those. But every now and then I'll get a text or I'll leave a message on someone's Facebook, someone celebrating something, a birthday, and they'll say something like, "Hey Troy, good to hear from you, man. I think of you often." Like that gives me chills. Like I'm like, man, that's not just a powerful statement. That's a statement that says you matter to me. Like you are on my mind sometimes, as opposed to, hey, you're on my mind now that you left a comment. But I think of you often. It's a very powerful display of like friendship and relationship. And I think that's the point we were making. And then you dove into this thing that's often misunderstood among evangelicals and Christians in general, is this idea of God's promises to us are not contractual or transactional because God is not equal to humans. So what is this notion of covenant, and why is a covenant, especially with the birth of Christ, essential to the Christmas story?
Well, a covenant has so many different, we went through them yesterday
all
at
the
length.
different.
But, I love the one, I'll get there, but I love the one to Abraham when he has the covenant. And he makes the covenant with Abraham, and now it's the covenant of circumcision, which we laugh about that and say a special handshake would have been a lot more convenient. But at some point, he's in a trance, and according to the scripture in the Old Testament, there's pots on each side, and there's smoldering pots burning with carcasses of meat cut. And as you walk through this channel of light and you accept the covenant, what you're really saying is, if I don't adhere to the covenant, may what happened to these big pieces of meat happen to me. So it's a little more savage than cross my heart, hope to die, stick a needle in my eye. This is really a very barbaric way of
That's right.
To make a covenant, you cut a covenant.
That's right.
Symbolizing the cutting of these pieces of meat.
Absolutely.
Now you get to the New Testament, and the covenant takes on a whole new dimension. This commandment that I give you, that you love one another. Do to one another. It's this love covenant. It's this covenant that says, hey, I love you. The covenant says, yes, Father, not my will, but your will be done. This new covenant I'm being made is really a covenant of the Spirit of God now dwelling within. But you want to know a secret? It's really not new.
That's right.
Because in Deuteronomy 6, he said, these commandments that I give you today, I really want to be upon your hearts. But they externalize it. They put them on the wrist.
That's right.
Door frames. But really the intent is to be upon their heart.
That's
and
right.
Jeremiah says, I long for the day that my commands are written on the fleshy tablets of the heart rather than on tablets of stone.
Yeah.
So you get this Old Testament theme of internal. Jesus has come back and said, I didn't come to abolish it.
That's right.
I came to fulfill it. You guys, hey, you've externalized all these things that should always be internal.
That's right.
And I'm here to let you know there's a new covenant today where the Spirit of God will live in you and enable these things to be a part of your heart and part of your life with this union. And I think that's what Christmas says to me.
And that's exactly right. And we could translate that to our modern era, the fleshy tablets of your heart, not on stone, or not in your doctrinal creeds or your mission vision statements or belief statements. None of that matters. What matters is
what's going on.
That's exactly right. Are you loving God? Or are you loving others? Because how I love God is manifest in how I love others. And for God so loved the cosmos, right, that he gave a son.
Yeah.
And Jesus says, what, you too can become sons of God. That's for me, that's the power of the Christmas story, is that we too can be reunited, not that we were ever disconnected, with the truth that's already within us, man.
Right.
That God's Spirit is always present. And that's why I said it yesterday, and I had a couple of people remark about it. They said, we've never heard it put that way, that Christianity for so long, and you and I grew up in that ethos, that environment. It was accepting and believing believe this and believe that, and you're good. But it's awakening, man. It's awakening and becoming what God has created me to be. And that when that light switch flipped on for me, I knew that my life would never be the same. I knew that my following of Christ would never be the same. And I'm thankful to be here under your leadership, because I used to be like, well, now I got to go save everybody who's getting saved.
Right.
Now it's not. It's like, hey, you can hold those beliefs as long as they're making a difference in your life. Like, it's nothing I want to sit here and argue and debate about with you. It's something I'm just saying, hey, I'm doing the best I can with what I know. You're doing the best you can with what you know. And when we come together, I still can learn much from you.
Right.
And I think it's that openness. And it seems as though people, especially in the religious community, people are more open to those conversations. Tonight we have our thing for our Mingle Monday. And actually we have a couple of people coming who have been invited from another church.
Right.
A youth minister and another teaching pastor from another church, because they just long for connection.
Right.
Because you and I know as pastors, we have a lot of acquaintances, but man, our inner circle is very small, and it helps to connect with people outside of the community that you find yourself in. And so I'm really excited to chat with those guys, but not about debates.
No, agreed.
But about conversations about these things.
Yeah.
And so with the covenant, the cutting of this covenant, the new Christmas covenant is what for us? What's the takeaway for us this Christmas season?
The one word, Emmanuel, God with us. And so what needs to cut away? Maybe our preconceived notions, our absolutism, our narrowness. Maybe we need to cut that stuff away so we get down to the core of it's God with us and in us and lives through us. Just like you said before in John, where it says you too can be sons of God, and just embracing what is already available to us. Yeah, that's the Christmas message. Man, we get that, we'll start a new year with a bang.
That's right on.
So it's pretty fun to see it happen, and I'm seeing light come on in people's eyes.
Yes,
and I listen to them tell others while I'm there how Suncoast is a little bit different than what they're used to.
Yeah,
and it's fun to hear them say that, because I go, spot on. That's good. I mean, because you got to be able to. For us, we have to be able to teach it. You got to know it.
Yep.
And when they get it, then we go, wow. And then they're teaching it.
That's right.
And they're getting it. So it's pretty exciting for me, because I think the future needs us.
Yep.
and they need this model.
Yep.
And we're not so egocentric that we think we're the only ones, but we want there to be more.
Right.
So if we're taking a few shots at the front edge of that wave, that's okay. But we want others to catch up because it's better for humanity. It's better for Christianity. It's better for people. It's just a better way to view the world, and less damage and more freedom.
Yeah. And we're getting ready. We have one more service Sunday, and then no church the following Sunday.
That's correct.
And then we have 4 Christmas Eve services,
That's
1:30, 3, 4:30, and 6.
And somebody asked me this magical question: what day is that?
What day is that?
The Christmas Eve services.
That's right.
I said, well, Christmas Eve.
That's right.
And they go, oh, sorry.
So that would be on Tuesday, right? So
That's Tuesday.
Next Tuesday,
Yeah.
so a week from tomorrow is Christmas Eve, 4 services. Can't wait. It's going to be amazing.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.